Hello YouTube, this is Cody from Bowtied Media, and we've got another installment of Hot Takes, as there were so many from the last time I asked you guys that we had to extend this into 2 individual episodes of Hot Takes. So without any further ado, let's hop into it. We need to be more open to hearing bad music, or music we personally might not enjoy if we want to develop a fuller appreciation for the medium. I feel like TikTok and recent streaming culture giving people a never-ending string of stuff they already like, it's harder to actually explore more songs outside of your comfort zone. Not to mention some people are unreceptive or downright nasty to artists that don't exclusively cater to them, and it pisses me off a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. There's a couple different arguments here. I will say at the end there, people being unreceptive to nasty artists that don't cater, that's just a personal problem. That's just a person that's being a dick, or a person that's just being rude to people that make music that they don't particularly like. That's a different conversation. In terms of being open to hearing more bad music, I do sort of agree to this extent that I do think we need to be more receptive to listening to music that might not be overly popular or not overly popular, but overly like strong and stuff that's more commercial friendly, because I think more often than not, the very commercial style tracks are the ones that are not so great in quality often. I think if you're big artists like a David Guetta nowadays, or Tiesto, or even the random Armin van Buuren tracks, there's either the really, really, really good ones, and then there's the really, really, really bad ones. But I understand the sentiment, and also like, there comes a point where, like, I don't want to keep listening to bad stuff. Like, I do it because I want to do this channel and I want to be ingrained in, again, all areas of the music sphere. But, like, there's got to be a give and take, an ebb and flow here where, yes, we're listening to stuff that you may not particularly love, but don't just listen to it because you feel like you need to listen to bad music, quote unquote. Listen to stuff that you really enjoy, and then also don't be nasty to those artists that you think are bad. There's something uniquely powerful about full remix packages. They bring the community together in a way other releases can't. There's something special about listening to remixes back to back and seeing how each artist shows their own take on each song that we honestly need more of them in the space right now. I would say I generally am okay on this take because I don't know why, but as I've done this channel a lot more recently, I've found that my gravitation towards remixes has dwindled, and I think that is a pretty common trend too. I just think we're seeing a lot less remixes nowadays. I don't know if it's because they aren't streaming as well, and that's why not a lot of remixes are being released, but I, as someone personally that is so trying to keep aware of everything that's happening in so many different spheres and genres and styles and labels, I just feel like I don't maybe have a ton of time for remixes nowadays. And I get the idea that you want to bring people together and hear a bunch of artists' take on a remix, and I do appreciate that, but I kind of don't mind how seldom they are right now, because you go, oh hey, like this is a song I'm really interested in, I'm curious to hear all these people on it, but like their take on it. But if we're getting like a new remix package like every other week, I'm just like, okay, I don't want to hear the same song like 7 different versions every other week. Like, I'd rather just like listen to some new stuff. So I get the sentiment, I get the joy of remix packages, but I think we're kind of at a good point where they're getting released at a steady pace right now. Melodic dubstep is the best dubstep subgenre. The biggest problem with it is how easy it is to make, hence most of the songs being very similar and repetitive, but that doesn't define the whole genre. When done well, e.g. Bridges Between by AU5, it opens up space for amazing sounding songs and great storytelling. I understand everything, maybe except for the very first sentence. I don't know if I necessarily agree with melodic dubstep is the best dubstep subgenre. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I definitely do agree that the biggest problem is how easy it is to make. And easy, I would say, relative to other things where you can make melodic dubstep has this really unique feature where you can pretty easily and formulaically, I would say, based off of what else has been made around it, make something that feels really uplifting and feels really grand when that sort of grand, uplifting feeling has been done a lot of times before. And so it's this weird back and forth dichotomy of like, hey, I can make this sound so incredible in like a vacuum as if no one's ever heard the sound before, but also when you get rid of the vacuum and you look at the whole thing, it's been done a lot before. And so, yes, I've had this back and forth love-hate relationship with melodic dubstep. I think it's great right now. I think the ecosystem is really strong in terms of what artists are producing, and I think we're getting the sentiment that a lot of artists necessarily aren't just making it because you can, and I think the people that are still making melodic dubstep right now are doing so because they really love the passion for it and want to put something really well together, a track that is unique and strong and something in its own right. And so I think we're sort of at the tail end of melodic dubstep now, where there aren't as many people just making it because it's easy and gets streams, and now it's the people that really love melodic dubstep, love mellow dub, and they're in it for the passion of it that are still making it. So, yes and no. Using mid to describe music with no extra context or commentary is a bad way of thinking. The people who describe music as mid usually think that is actually much worse than just mediocre, but they resort to saying mid because it is safer. I think saying something mid is a bit of a crutch, and this is coming from someone that has a whole category in This Week in EDM that's called meh, and oftentimes I will say a song is just meh. But I think for the most part, and here's where I would big disagree, I think there is a lot of music out there that is so incredibly mid/meh that is just a product of everything else around it that it really is the best description of it. Do I think it's a bit of lazy writing and an explanation of a song? Yeah, a little bit. And do I do it a couple times? Yeah, I'll do it every now and then. But I think it's because sometimes I will listen to a song and I will literally think to myself, I'm like, there is no other way to describe the song than just kind of meh, because it just has no real defining features one way or another. It doesn't sound overly fantastic. It doesn't sound bad either. It's just such this weird middle ground where it just isn't really doing anything. It's like just like the most vanilla bland. And in that sense, I think meh is a pretty good indicator of what that is. But if you're doing that over and over and over again, your same thing is just mid, and that's all you're saying, that's not helpful. The smaller the artist, the better the experience. This isn't a genre issue, it's a matter of quality. Big names make bland music for the labels who want money. Small ones make music for the love of the game. No. I actually disagree with this one for a bunch of reasons. Number one is that where do you think big artists started from? Big artists start small, and they have their small little venues and styles and stuff. And those artists change, and their sound develops over time. And sometimes, yes, they do get a little bit more bland, a little bit more safer when they get bigger. But not always. That is not always the case. I think you in particular might just like a more intimate setting for your music listening and or stuff. And I do agree generally that smaller artists, or at least artists that aren't as popular or commercial, have more ability to experiment and try different sounds because they have an audience that is there with them as a creator rather than them as a product, as the music they're producing and they're making. And I think of like the Chainsmokers are a great example. I actually really liked a lot of the Chainsmokers' early kind of music, but they're an example on the other end of this where they did get really big and people don't really look at the Chainsmokers for being the Chainsmokers anymore. They kind of look at the product that they are making as music. And I think for the most part, they are trying to make music that is just so radio friendly, kind of just vanilla, bland, that will stream well and be easily listenable to as many people as possible. So in that sense, yes, I sort of hear what you're coming from, but also think of like, a Porter Robinson or even like the Beatles, who started from a small place at some point, as they always did, and as they got bigger and bigger and bigger, their music didn't degrade in quality. They just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just experimented with different sounds and styles, and they're still fantastic. So I think it's a case-by-case basis, and I don't think it's a blanket that smaller is better and bigger is worse. That is not true. Most EDM producers are not good songwriters. Producing and songwriting are two different disciplines that not all electronic artists are skilled at both, but when they are, the music is amazing. Yes, I actually do think I need to agree with this one pretty handedly, because I think that's what makes certain artists special, like a Porter Robinson or a Madion are great examples. Even Apache here and there, a totally different realm of things. Grabbitz even a little bit. dance music has just this ability, electronic dance music has this ability to be so user-friendly that anyone can really hop into a DAW or even GarageBand or any free program really and just make a beat that sounds somewhat competent, somewhat want to listen to, something you actually want to put on a speaker and listen to. And I don't fault EDM producers for not being brilliant songwriters, just because I don't think they need to be. I don't think you need to be a brilliant songwriter to do well in the EDM space. I think if you have a unique sound and style and ideas and you're creative within your own production elements, I don't think you necessarily need to have this like really dense songwriting or something like that just makes you a different type of artist. And I also think it's also really hard to be like a Porter Robinson that is so brilliant at songwriting while also creating a style of production and sound design that is so unique and your own. So yeah, I gotta agree with this one, and I agree with it because I just don't think it's needed. Okay, this is one I have wanted to talk about for a long time. Let's read this. I've reached an epiphany. The greatest divide in EDM isn't between generations, genres, or countries. It's between headphone music and festival music. Labels almost always cater to one or the other. NCS and Circus are mostly headphone music. Revealed and Spinnin' are festival music. Monstercat is the only one to successfully thread the needle. Disciple managed for a moment, but now that's really managing either crowd, or it isn't really managing either crowd. Whenever an artist becomes overwhelmingly popular, well, making unimaginative music, chances are that they're making festival music. Whenever people say they don't get something or it's too heady or overrated, chances are that artist makes headphone music. Man, I've been wanting to talk about this in some capacity in a long-form video in a while, and so thank you for starting this conversation because I hard agree with this one. I think this is absolutely the biggest divide, and I would say probably 95% of you watching this right now are headphone music enjoyers. I think not many of us, and I've done surveys in the past actually, aren't people that go to festivals and just, there's the whole other cultural trend with that, with or without drugs and outfits and stuff and just this lifestyle that you're within. But I think you watching this video are likely someone that hasn't gone to a festival or a club in quite some time. And if you have, you've gone specifically for an individual artist to watch an individual artist perform, and you're not just there for like a 6-hour set to just vibe and just and be listening to the music in this setting. And yeah, I absolutely think so. And that's why I think, in particularly when I do videos like This Week in EDM, I'm very critical of the like festival music. And I think oftentimes it lands in the bad, trash, or meh categories because it's meant for a different audience. It's meant for a whole different setting, and time, place. And it's just, there really is, it's hard for, like this person said, labels and even artists specifically to cater to both areas. And it's really hard to thread that needle. And the people and entities and stuff that have been able to do in the past have found good success with it. And yeah, I just think it's so true. And I want to talk about this more in a video at some point. So hopefully stay tuned. I don't know when this will be, but I'd love to talk about this more in detail because I got to agree. In the 2010s, a mid-5-minute single will always be more interesting than an S-tier song under 2 minutes. No. As someone that loves long songs, I oftentimes on this channel will say I like longer music. No, if there's a song that's under 2 minutes that is just like an S tier, like it's like a 10 out of 10, it's not going to be better than a 5-minute song that's a 6 out of 10. Like that's not how that works. You can have short songs that are absolute bangers and short songs that are absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I just think this is a lie. Grabbitz has no bad tracks. Let me think about that. Yeah, you're right. The live music industry is terrible, from associating with drug companies to unsafe conditions to ludicrous prices to scalpers buying all the tickets, even to alcohol serving at venues, all of which are lowering the chance of young people getting into or to enjoy music culture, which is very dangerous in such an already isolated world. Only rich adults in first world countries can experience or can be expected to hear any artist they love live. I think this is too extreme, I will say, as someone that's done a little bit of going to festivals and raves and clubs. This is I mean, maybe I'm a privileged white guy that lives in North America that feels counter to this, but yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that true. I think there's a lot of companies that also don't want to associate with the drug stuff, that don't want to associate with that certain EDM crowd that like is very yeah, I would say drug forward, drug focused, that are there just to purely party and not there for the music. Yeah, I just don't think this is necessarily true. I get that things are expensive nowadays with live music in any capacity. And when it comes to big concert shows, yeah, it's definitely expensive to go see artists you love. But I don't know. I just think that's a blanket statement that is just not entirely true all around. Never waste an opportunity to settle for mediocrity. If every track in EDM was extraordinary, the music would lose its charm. And the diamonds in the rough would cease to be seen. And that's pretty boring, wouldn't it? Because sometimes the unspectacular can be beautiful. Basically, if bad music doesn't exist, then good music can't exist either. Try to enjoy things that aren't as enjoyable at face value, because you'll never know how many days we have left on Earth. I get the sentiment. I also know that you can criticize by saying, if we have so little days left on Earth, then why listen to anything that's bad, quote unquote, or rougher? But I heard a very interesting quote today, actually, that in terms of percentages of good quality things, the top 50% in terms of good quality can't exist if there isn't a bottom 50% as well. If everything is top 50% and everything is top 1% even quality, then nothing is. So yes and no. Stealing Fire by Virtual Riot was disappointing. Virtual Riot is an incredibly talented and creative artist. Every time I tune into one of his streams or see his ID reels, I am always blown away by how imaginative and expansive his ideas are, with him reaching into so many genres of electronic music and even going beyond that. I have no clue why he confines himself to such bland and basic bass music like in Stealing Fire, because I know he is capable of so much more. No, I think Stealing Fire was a great record. I know I got a lot of flack for not putting it in my albums of the year list. I guess even in honorable mentions, but, yeah, I know I got some flack for not having it in my top 10, but, it was still a fantastic record. And I think even Simulation was fantastic. And I think Virtual Riot is good. I understand the sentiment though. And I think you gotta remember that, when you have sets and you have streams and stuff, you have the idea, or you have the ability to be a lot more creative and or just wild with what you can do, because it's not a song that's going to be packaged to stream, and that is your livelihood. The song music, when you put music out to the world, that's how Virtual Riot makes money. That's how Virtual Riot exists as a person to, I guess, make music to some extent. And so you have just the ability to play around with things that are often a little bit more confusing at times, often creative at times, more creative at times, and just have that ability to play around with all that stuff with non like official music releases. I think that's just a pretty common thing. I think even when you think of like maybe athletes are a great example, where when you think of an athlete, let's say basketball, for example, they can do like fancy trick shots and they can do all this crazy fun things and like dribbling techniques, but you don't do that in a game because you have a purpose in a game, and that is to win. And you can do all the fancy stuff, and you can go for full court shots all the time, and you can sink a decent amount of them, like some of them can, but you don't do that because that's not the point of what you're doing when you're actually executing what you're trying to do. I hope that makes sense.